Summer is here, so let's make a sunglasses case. My design inspiration for today's project is my wife's Ray-Bans case, and what I like about it is the pebbled grain, even color, and fine stitching, but I think we can improve a few things. Firstly, I want to use real leather and change the overall shape, especially that front flap, and I want to use a magnetic closure instead of a snap. My first thought was to use a leather that is a similar color, but my wife's favorite color is green, so I think it'd be nice to change the color as well. For this project, I'm going to be using a 12 by 12 inch panel of our 2 to 3 ounce soft sides leather, as well as a 2 to 3 ounce panel of our veg tan leather. I'm going to adhere these two pieces together so that both the inside and the outside of the case will have a finished and clean look. And you could make this project with a single piece of firm tempered 4 to 5 ounce leather. Just keep in mind that the flesh side of the leather could leave behind some small fibers on the lenses of your glasses. And here's the pattern I came up with, which can be downloaded for free using the link in the description below. Let's get started on the project. The first thing I did was cut slightly oversized shapes out of the panels and used S18 contact cement to adhere the two main pieces of leather together. Once that glue had set for about 10 minutes, I joined the two pieces and smoothed them out with the roller tool. Then it was time to use the pattern to cut out all the pieces to their final dimensions. I attached the pattern to the leather with masking tape so that it wouldn't shift as I punched the holes and cut. I started off by punching the holes for the center support piece. I punched the larger center hole since I plan to use rivets to attach the piece. If you'd rather stitch it in place, punch out the 4 smaller stitching holes instead. Next, I cut the small slits for the magnetic fastener with the utility knife and marked the positioning line for the strap. The soft side leather is extremely scratch resistant, so instead of scoring a line into the leather like I usually would, I had to poke small indentations into the leather to mark it. I used my leather scissors to cut out the body piece since they are great for long, gentle curved shapes like these. If you're wondering what makes these leather scissors special, it's the long shank, which gives them more leverage to cut through thick materials, a blunt tip, which reduces the chances of accidentally marking your leather, and the ability to come apart for easy sharpening. That is an essential feature since you have to have sharp scissors to be able to make it through materials like leather. The center support piece needs to be rigid, so I used a scrap piece of 5 to 6 ounce veg tan leather, or you could stack 2 layers of that same 2 to 3 ounce veg tan we used earlier to get the same result. Then I cut the slits in the strap with my flathead utility knife. After that, I used a rotary hole cutter on the center support piece to punch out those holes. Next, I used the rotary cutter to cut out the strap in the center support piece. I used the scissors again and the utility knife for the curved parts. I applied neat's foot oil to condition it and darken it up a little bit. And I actually wanted it a little bit darker, so I took it outside so it can get a suntan. After a couple hours, I brought it back inside and applied some Phoebing's 4-way care and buffed that out. This gives it a little bit more of a shine and conditions it. After everything was cut out, I sanded the pieces to ensure everything was smooth and perfectly flush. I'll be painting these edges, which makes this step especially important. I beveled the edges of the veg tan pieces and burnished them before they were attached to the body piece. The last thing to do before we start constructing this is to install the magnetic fasteners. The way this pattern is designed, the top magnet will be hidden from the outside, which will give it a premium look. To install these fasteners, you insert the prongs through the slit in the leather, place the washer, and bend the prongs down to lock it into place. And then just repeat this process for the other side of the magnet. Then I set that aside and sewed the top seam, which goes all the way around but stops where the side seams will be. and I'm going to be sewing today on the Sewrite leatherwork machine. So then I started my seam, making sure to backstitch at both the beginning and the end of the seam. Then I used S18 to glue the strap to the body. I used the positioning marks I made earlier to place masking tape, which will help me keep things clean, as well as act as a positioning guide when I place the strap on the main body piece. And after the strap was glued on, I scored a line with my wing divider. This will give me a guideline as I stitch. With my line scored, I then took it over to the sewing machine. I had to be careful and keep the fasteners in mind because we need to avoid them with our presser foot and our needle. I learned that the hard way on my first prototype for this case, because as you can see, my seam was not quite straight because I didn't leave enough room for my presser foot. I'm using a smaller needle and thread than usual since I'm going for a fine and luxurious look. This is a Tex 70 thread with a size 16 twist point needle. I also bumped down my stitch length to about 2.5 millimeters. I typically make things look more rustic and use a heavier thread, but I actually love the look of this style of stitching. When I got my first industrial sewing machine, I was using Tex 210, and I quickly found out that that was overkill, and so I settled on Tex 135 for the next couple years. But more recently, I've started to using Tex 90, and now I'm doing some experimenting with Tex 70 thread, so if this trend continues, I'll be sewing with dental floss here in a couple months. Now that the strap is sewn on, we can install the rivets to attach the center support piece. And this piece is important for 3 reasons. It helps give the case its shape and volume for the glasses to fit inside. It gives the glasses something to rest on, which prevents them from shifting left and right. And this piece absorbs the force of whatever you use as a fastener, whether it's a snap or a magnet, so that you aren't putting pressure on the glasses themselves. Now I'll glue my sides together and hold it together with these leather clips. And these are great because they won't mar your leather, and they also have a really strong holding force, making sure that piece doesn't shift after you've glued it. Then one more trip back to the sewing machine to sew up those sides, making sure to backstitch at the beginning and the end like always. And if you want to know how to do this, I've got 3 easy ways, and we went over that in a recent video. I'll have that linked in the description below. The finishing touches are to sand that side seam flush and apply Phoebing's edge coat. I'm painting the edges since softer leathers like this don't burnish well. I did my typical process of applying 2 to 3 coats, letting each coat dry thoroughly and buffing after each application. And that wraps up this project. And like I mentioned earlier, you can download this pattern for free to try it out for yourself. I'll also link the leather panels and other products I use in the video description below. Let me know in the comments if you think I improved anything from this original design or if you have any questions for me. And drop a like on the video if you liked it and subscribe to the channel for more DIY inspiration. Bye for now, I'll see you in the next video.